Today, we will discuss the merit of dedication from extraordinary words. This should be section 39. When making dedications, we need to visualize, just as the youthful Manjushri made aspirations to benefit all sentient beings. For as long as space endures, and as long as sentient beings remain, may I too abide in the world to dispel all their miseries. It seems this is from the dedication chapter of the Way of the Bodhisattva. As long as space exists, sentient beings will also exist. If sentient beings exist, karma and afflictions will also exist. Therefore, during the time I exist, I want to dispel the sufferings of sentient beings. This aspiration prayer was often used by His Holiness in the past within different pith instructions. Every one of us needs to make this kind of aspiration. As long as space exists and sentient beings exist, then I will also exist. And what am I here for? I am here to dispel the sufferings of sentient beings. It does not mean that while sentient beings are here, I should also be lazy, doing nothing but eating every day, or remaining in the world just to live off the blood of sentient beings. This is not what it means. So, what is written here is exactly the same. We should also visualize in this way. Until space is exhausted, sentient beings will not cease to exist. Until sentient beings cease to exist, karma and afflictions will not cease to exist. Until karma and afflictions cease to exist, suffering will also be endless. The cause of suffering for all sentient beings is the truth of origin, karma and afflictions. Before all of these are completely extinguished, I pray and aspire to continuously accomplish the welfare of sentient beings. All the roots of virtue I have created are entirely dedicated to all sentient beings. In fact, generating such a motivation is indeed very important. The reason why we are teaching extraordinary words this time is that many of you have probably never met His Holiness in person. In that case, although His Holiness's form body was extraordinarily magnificent and endowed with supreme merits, his vajra speech is what truly remains. Aside from this, even if the Guru were still alive today, there might not be anything else. There are some senior disciples here, and they basically know that back then it was just that His Holiness's form body could be seen. Having that opportunity was a great blessing. Apart from this, there is probably no difference. Therefore, during this seminar, for everyone, utilizing these 10-odd minutes after class is, I believe, truly necessary. Because such a great Bodhisattva once came to this mountain valley. However, some of us might not have had enough merit to see him with our own eyes. Yet, in a certain sense, our merit is still wonderful as we can personally study His Holiness's teachings. As mentioned in some aspiration prayers, this is the Dharma whose warmth of Dakini blessings has not yet dissipated. It can be said that since His Holiness passed away not long ago, the warmth of his blessings has not faded. When such a warm Dharma is presented right before you, in a certain sense, you are definitely fortunate. Therefore, you should think to yourself, if the Guru were truly present right now, his words would be speaking to me exactly like this. If I practice right now, according to the Guru's guidance, it is virtually the same as relying on a spiritual friend. Throughout history, many great masters and realized beings, even if they had never met a certain master in person, could later connect with his wisdom body. Through other methods of receiving blessings, they similarly realized his enlightened intent. So, this is also a method of dedication. Dedication essentially carries the meaning of generosity. For example, if you have $100, then giving it to someone else, or dedicating it to someone else, is the same thing. Giving to others and dedicating to others are identical. All the roots of virtue I have accumulated must also be given to all sentient beings who are born from the cause of the truth of origin. Because regarding the truth of origin and afflictions, for sentient beings who are produced due to these causes, if their roots of virtue are dedicated, then they will not be destroyed by non-dedication, wrong dedication, showing off to others, or generating anger. These are the four causes that destroy roots of virtue. Dedication protects them from being destroyed by any of these four. Every time, for instance, when we make a dedication today, as soon as the dedication is completed, the merit cannot be easily destroyed. Didn't I mention this before? For example, when circumambulating a mandala or a stupa, when two villagers in the Tibetan region run into each other, if one villager tries to start a conversation, the other might say, "Please wait a moment, Let me make a dedication first before we chat. This is because he might worry that shortly after they might accidentally start arguing with each other, and then his roots of virtue would immediately disappear. So he says, hold on a second, let me complete the dedication first before we talk. This is actually a very wise approach. Otherwise, if merit is left undedicated, all the virtues accumulated over 1,000 eons, such as generosity and discipline, will be completely destroyed. As stated in the Way of the Bodhisattva, a single burst of anger can destroy what has been gathered over 1,000 eons, such as generosity, offerings to the Sugatas, and all other forms of merit. Everyone knows this well. If the roots of virtue are dedicated, they will never be exhausted. The Questions of Sagaramati Sutra also states, just like a drop of water falling into the great ocean, it will not dry up until the ocean itself is exhausted. Likewise, the root of virtue dedicated to enlightenment will not be exhausted until enlightenment is attained. If you dedicate your virtue toward the attainment of Buddhahood, then, before you actually achieve Buddhahood, these roots of virtue will never be exhausted. Therefore, when we perform dedications, right up until we attain Buddhahood, and when everyone recites the King of Aspiration prayers, you should also contemplate in your heart the roots of virtue from listening to the Dharma today, and all the roots of virtue I accumulated throughout this day, just as Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, Bodhisattva Manjushri, Bodhisattva Shantideva, or Bodhisattva Samantabhadra, however they dedicated their merits, I will dedicate mine in exactly the same way. If we do this, many of us can perform dedications like this. Their merits will definitely never be exhausted before attaining Buddhahood, as their dedications are held and sealed by that sublime wisdom. Therefore, we should also dedicate our merits in this manner. If we dedicate our virtue toward the attainment of Buddhahood, then right up until we achieve full enlightenment, these roots of virtue will never be exhausted. In the same way, the roots of virtue embraced by bodhicitta will never be exhausted.
Sunamandai tamche zubanya tona nibe jana panshe jirga nanchi ranhong chubai chubum zonin drowa drurasho
Bandangara Badna Sadardam Bandangara Badna Sadardam Bandangara Badna Sadardam